Hello everyone and welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm glad you're here. Now for this project, I started with the base first. The reason I started with this base first is it's going to be more complicated than any of the others that I have done. So I started out with piling up some foam and gluing it together with hot melt glue. And then I mixed up some grout and used that to fill in cracks and make everything blend into one cohesive piece. Now I have all the grout put on, it's starting to come together nicely. Once all the grout was dry, then it was time to seal it and get painting it. And I used my Mod Podge paint water mix, which I still have a bunch of it left. Once that layer had dried, then it was time to paint everything with some brown acrylic craft paint. Once the brown was dried, I used some grays and some white for highlights and made some stone parts for it, but I forgot to record that part. I had gotten some plastic white chain and super glued it into a shape to hold this little stone island up, but I had a lot of trouble with it. It kept breaking, it kept tipping over, and it took quite a while to finally get it all done so that it would hold. What ended up making it work at the end was super glue gel. And here I make the leaf parts in the usual way of one loop at a time using the speed tool. Now in the past, I've done a silver tree with purple leaf parts. This time I switched it up and did purple tree, silver leaf parts. With this tree being no different than any of the others, I just randomly twisted up the sets of branches and then worked on branch tips from there before I started putting the leaf parts on. I've noticed in the past I've had my hands in the way of what I'm doing. I tried doing better this time with showing it a little better of where and what I'm doing. And here I just thought I would try a different angle. Maybe this would work out better for showing how I put the leaf parts on. And with the tree completed, now it was time to work on the second part of the base. I took a square piece of plywood that I had, glued some XPS foam to it, and sealed it up with some of my gray paint Mod Podge mix. While this part dried, I went back to work on the island part. Just covering the top flat part of it with some green acrylic craft paint. And while that part dried, it was back to the flat part of the other part of the base, and I mixed up some brown, white, and I added in some yellow to create my own tan color. Once the tan color was done, then I just streaked in some of the brown just to give it a little bit of variation. While that was drying, I used a bamboo skewer and glued it into the island and up into the trunk of the tree so that everything was held, as this tree had a slanted trunk, so it leaned heavy to one side. Then I spread some Elmer's glue or PVA glue around the roots of the tree, and I used some alfalfa that I had sifted out tiny bits of it, so it's real grass, sort of. The nice part about using the alfalfa bits is it has a nice scent to it for a little while, until it fully dries out. And here I go, trying not to make a mess while I tap off the excess. Some more glue and spread that around, and some more little bits. Once that was done, I put some more glue on, and I tried putting on some more bits that are bigger that I sift from the sifting process, and just to give it a little bit of variation in size. It worked okay. And once those bits were put on and I got off the extra pieces or excess pieces, then I put a little bit more glue on, and I started putting on bits and pieces of moss. Just trying to build up a little bit of variation on the base so it doesn't look so plain and blah. Now time for that to dry, and back to the other base. I placed my stone in there. You can see I drilled some holes. That's where the chain is going to be held in place. And I did these strips of glue because I was going to go for a wavy look to the sand that I put on. First, I tried some watered down glue in between the lines, but I didn't let the lines dry, so it all just kind of blended and kind of flattened out in that area. Here I am adding some extra fine sand that I had sifted out of just some dirt out of my driveway. Here I am putting some little tiny stones that were just part of the sifting process from the dirt in the driveway. And I'm just going for a dried up shore look here. So going from sand to small stones. After the lines had dried with some sand on them, I sprinkled more sand over top, and I did the sand first. Once I was done putting the sand on, I spritzed on some isopropyl alcohol. The isopropyl alcohol helps break the surface tension of the glue so that it spreads out more evenly. And sprinkle on a bit more sand. And some more stones. And when that was all done, I set it outside in the sun to dry. Once it was fully dry, I took some brown colored wires and I put them through the holes that I drilled, as these would be twisted around the links of the chain to hold them in place. You may have noticed that the chain is no longer black. That is because I had sprayed it with a special spray paint that is supposed to look like pounded metal, but it didn't work out very well. Not sure why. maybe the humidity. And with the chain wired down, it was time to get the stone positioned just right, as this is the counterbalance weight for the floating island. Put some extra strong Elmer's glue on and position the stone and see what part was actually touching, and it would turned out to be not very much of it. So plan B was some cotton ball and super glue stuck to the bottom of the stone to help glue it down. Of course, it would help if I'd placed the stone facing the right direction. And now that I get the stone in the right position, fingers crossed that this works, because I have no other plan of how to do it. With all of that done, now it is time to position the branches for the final setup of the tree. And with the positioning of the branches, the video is almost done, and I'd like to take the time to thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.